Welcome to Art Book Nook. My name is Kay and I share and review my lovely collection of art and craft books. Today I'm going to review Modern Watercolor Workshop by Pooja Kenjale-Umrani. I do hope I've pronounced the artist's name correctly. This book is described as a calm and creative course in watercolour painting. Learn to paint with ease 21 beginner-friendly, step-by-step watercolour projects that have been crafted by the artist for pure enjoyment and relaxation. It's been quite a while since I last reviewed an art book geared towards complete beginners, so today I thought I'd share this lovely treat with you. The book's ideal for anyone who's just starting out with watercolour, and it does offer a wonderful, approachable way to explore this beautiful medium. So if you're picking up a brush for the very first time, or looking to refresh your skills or get back into watercolour after a long break, this book might be just what you need to spark your creativity. Pooja begins by saying hello and introducing you to what the book's about. She shares a bit about her journey, how she became a watercolourist, and then she answers that big question, why watercolour? She explains why she's chosen patterns as a way to teach. Patterns give you space to slow down and learn at your own pace. And because you're not aiming to produce a finished masterpiece, they're a great way to practice colour mixing and brushwork without any pressure. So what's inside this book? We'll start with looking at the tools and supplies, basic watercolour techniques and basic colour theory. Then we have 21 projects divided into 7 sets of 3. Each set includes 3 different difficulty levels, easy, medium and challenging. In tools and supplies, Pooja explains all about watercolour paper, the different weights and the different surface textures, and then provides an overview of watercolour paint, the difference between student grade versus professional grade watercolours. Pooja uses synthetic bristle brushes for all her watercolour work, and she talks about the different sizes of brushes and the different shapes. Pooja gives you some really helpful advice for looking after your brushes, and she also talks about miscellaneous art supplies such as palettes, sketching supplies, markers, masking tape and masking fluid. She recommends trying to work in a room that inspires and motivates you, and describes her own workspace and why it works for her. The best approach is to do what works best for you. Not everyone is fortunate to have a dedicated workspace, but that's what makes watercolour so accessible, the fact that we can set it up on a kitchen table and it's easily cleared down if necessary. Now we come to an important part of the book, the section on basic watercolour techniques. Pooja covers several fundamentals here, like how to hold your brush correctly. It's a small detail, but it makes a difference whether you're working on precise lines or filling in larger areas. She also talks about brush types and illustrates the different brush strokes that can be made by different sizes and shapes of brush. Pooja shares some helpful tips about working on different sizes of paper, especially when you're scaling up to a full-size pattern. It's useful guidance if you're not sure where to start or what to expect when working larger. She then introduces 2 key watercolour techniques, wet on dry and wet on wet. These are the foundation of most watercolour work, and she walks you through them with some simple practice exercises. We start by applying wet paint directly onto a dry patch of paper, just to get used to the feel and flow. Then there's more practice with wet on dry, this time blending a second colour into the first, allowing you to see how the paint behaves and overlaps when the surface stays dry. In the wet on wet technique, paint is applied to a wet surface, which can either be a wetted paper surface or a wet layer of paint. So we have some basic practice patches here, and then some additional practice ideas. And Pooja also explains how you can fix a paint puddle. We're now going to learn how to create watercolour washes, beginning with a flat wash. This is an area of even colour, moving on to a gradient wash, which is where you go from dark to light. And finally, we'll learn how to create a variegated wash, which is where you transition between 2 or more different colours, using both the wet on wet and wet on dry methods. We've now reached the section on colour theory, and this is one that you really shouldn't skip. Pooja takes the time to explain some essential colour theory basics, starting with the core vocabulary. These are terms that come up again and again, not just in this book, but in most watercolour instruction, so it's worth getting familiar with them. She talks about value, which refers to how light or dark a colour appears, and saturation, sometimes called intensity, which is how rich or dull a colour is. These concepts might seem technical at first, but they're key and very important to your watercolour paintings. Pooja goes on to explain the difference between tint, tone and shade, three terms that can be a bit confusing at first, but they're important for understanding how to control and adjust your colours. She also includes a simple breakdown of the colour wheel, covering primary, secondary and tertiary colours as well as warm and cool tones. It's all presented in a very beginner-friendly way, enough to give you a solid foundation without getting too technical. If you're new to colour mixing, this section will really help you feel more confident when you start to paint your own patterns. Now we've arrived at the fun bit, the most exciting part of colour theory, colour schemes and colour combinations. Pooja walks us through some of the classic schemes you'll come across, like monochromatic, complementary, split complementary, analogous, triadic and tetradic. She explains what each one means, how the colours relate to each other on the colour wheel, and importantly, how they can affect the mood and feel of your artwork. It's a great way to start thinking more intentionally about your palette, even if you're just working on simple patterns. On the right hand page, Pooja has swatched out all the colours she's used in the projects in this book. Personally, I think that's quite a lot of colours, especially for a beginner. My advice to you would be to buy 3 cool primary colours and 3 warm primary colours, so that's red, blue and yellow, and then mix your own using the colour wheel as your guide. It'll be a good exercise for you and it will save you quite a lot of money, and at the end of the day the exact colours that you use are your personal choice, aren't they? So this brings us to part 2, which is the main section of the book. It takes up about 3/4 of the book, to be honest, and it's the part that contains the 21 step-by-step projects. So we begin with a very easy project called Playful Bubbles, which is an abstract pattern that will allow you to focus on drawing solid circles and rings of varying sizes using shades of 3 warm colours. And the idea behind this pattern is to learn how to paint circular shapes with a loose, sort of tension-free hand. So on the left-hand side, we have a photograph of, your painting won't look exactly the same as this, but we have an image of what you're trying to achieve. And then we start with a description of what the project's about. There's also a sort of a paint tube, and it actually shows you the difficulty level. And then there's a materials list, brush size, paper size, and the colours that Pooja's used in this particular project. But you can change those colours and use what you have. So you begin with some basic practice. So painting a ring, painting a solid circle, practicing with one colour, practicing with different colours, and then practicing using all 3 colours at once. It's a good idea, and then Pooja also gives you some hints and tips for creating an interesting pattern. And here we have illustrated step-by-step instructions, 1 to 6, taking you through your first project. So here is the second project in the first set of patterns, which is circles, half moons, using a different colour combination. The projects are all laid out in exactly the same way. So you have a suggested finished image on the left hand page. You then have the difficulty level indicated by the paint tube, and also a list of materials, what brush you need, paper sizes and the colours. These are all suggestions, so you can use what you have. The projects in the book all follow the same structure and format, so what I shall do is I'll put the remaining 20 projects to some nice music for you, otherwise you'll lose the will to live by listening to me repeat myself continuously. So sit back and relax and enjoy the rest of the book, and I'll join you at the end and provide a summary. We've now reached the final page of Pooja's beautiful book, where she shares her acknowledgements, and there's a short section about Pooja herself. While I was researching Pooja as an artist, the only link I found on Google was to her Instagram account, but tucked away at the back of the book is a written link to her website, bythelakesideartstudio.com. I honestly wouldn't have found this without the book, so if you're looking her up, that's a good place to start. I've put links in the description below. I do think it might be worth Pooja asking her web developer to improve the site search visibility, as it's not easy to find otherwise. That aside, once I got to her website, I discovered links to her Skillshare classes, YouTube channel and even her Pinterest page, a lovely set of resources if you'd like to explore more of her work. As for the book itself, it's really beautifully produced, a sturdy hardback with bright clear printing and thick high quality paper. I think Pooja's book will be an excellent companion for complete beginners to watercolour. You'll be able to practice brush control, explore how paint flows and blends, and start learning the basics of colour mixing. My only hesitation is the colour palette Pooja suggests. It includes 33 different pigments. That's quite an investment for someone just starting out, and honestly not necessary. Most colours can be mixed from just 3 primaries, a red, a yellow and a blue, plus a few useful extras. I'm planning to create a course soon on the different types of watercolour pigments and how they behave, but for now I've listed a simple starter palette in the description below. It includes 6 main colours, a warm and a cool version of each primary, and a couple of additional useful pigments to have on your palette. Now, they're not the usual suspects. I've deliberately chosen transparent or semi-transparent paint and single pigment colours, which really helps to avoid dull or muddy mixes. I've also included a link below where you can buy your own copy of Modern Watercolor Workshop by Pooja. You'll also find links to a few of my other book reviews, each one carefully chosen for complete beginners to watercolour and similar in tone and content to Pooja's lovely book. If you decide to pick up a copy or explore any of my other recommendations, I'd really love to hear how you get on. Please feel free to leave me a comment. I reply to every single one. I hope you found this review helpful. If you did, please give the video a like. It really helps YouTube share it with others who enjoy art books too. I post a new art book review every week, so if you'd like to see more, do consider subscribing. I truly appreciate it. If you found the review helpful, please feel free to leave a comment below. I reply to every one. And if there's an art book you'd like me to feature, just let me know. I'll do my best to review it for you. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy painting.